Hello every folks, and welcome to a little bit of a breakdown of, well, I think the elemental system might not be broken, but it might potentially be very oddly specific. So let's get into this here, and I really hope this is correct. Please bear in mind I have not seen any kind of backup information on this from any of the data mining folks or anything like that, but this is what why I've been going and testing with so many like high scaling units like archers and whatever else, trying to make some sense of how the kind of elemental coverages and everything else work in this game. So here's the thing. First of all, you have to understand that type coverage is going to matter a absolute ton more than raw power. Like raw power, it takes forever to go and get leveled up. Like when you see somebody with a summoner firing out, like 2,000 per shot, they've been at that for a while. But at the same time, you can potentially do that far faster by exploiting a bunch of weaknesses. There's three primary ways you can do this. You essentially have the defense breaker, so that's going to be a breach or a enfeeble. Those are available from items, finishers, weapons, what have you. You have stuff like fear, which comes from obviously something like the Terror Knight or something like a Cyclops. A few other sources as well, but generally speaking, it's not as common. And then you have the most common, which is going to be the elemental finisher. So I believe the way that they implemented it is fairly similar to how a verse worked back in the previous version, which obviously some bits of it might be a little bit off for newer folks, or for older folks rather, because quite frankly we didn't have weaknesses in that version. It was just strengths. But here's the thing, off elements might be the best way to actually handle all of this stuff, because we couldn't really figure out whether this stuff was just not scaling right, because clearly there was some bonus coming from the weapon, but it was very inconsistent and hard to figure out. So here's what I think is going on. When the weapon is attacking, it essentially has a physical, racial, and elemental component. It will just sort of pick and choose these depending on the situation. So for example, right here, if Vice were to go ahead and attack this earth unit, it would say, hey, his wind element is going to be providing more bonus than his weapon's fire element. Therefore, I'm going to be using that one. But if you were to go and attack an ice unit per se, or let's say, then suddenly, hey, he's getting a weakness to that ice unit, but the 25% bonus from his weapon is essentially pushing it forward to a kind of similar number to what's going on over here. So for example, like if we look at any of the bosses or whatever else, we'll see that they're doing incredibly low numbers because this thing does not, penetrate worth jack. But if he were to go and attack any ice unit, he is still going to be, generally speaking, doing a decent amount of additional damage versus those units. Like for example, Kashua, well actually she should be entirely resistant right now, but anyway, point being, he is getting more bonus when he's attacking the ice units with that bow. However, if he were to be a fire element while firing that bow, he wouldn't get much bonus off that, because I believe it's applying whichever is highest, that it checks whichever one gives you the most bonus instead of stacking them, because frankly, elemental stacking could lead to some crazy stuff back in the PSP version. So I believe that's what's going on there. So effectively, you could have the unit's personal element, the weapon element, and their finishers providing all kinds of different type coverage, because the finishers themselves will temporarily switch you to that element. It just counts as a spell of that element as if you were that element. So for example, a finisher, like let's say with Flaming Blast, will do a ton against against an ice unit, even if the unit firing it is not fire. The Imperial Shot will do a ton against water units, even if the unit is not water, or is not lightning. You don't actually get any extra from going, and particularly going in this situation. Like you don't have to stack it, is what I'm trying to say. You don't have to stack for one element. In fact, you're essentially kind of stacking towards nothing, because it's only going to seemingly apply the highest one in any given situation. So spread out your type coverage. You get to, this system has a lot more cool stuff going on than I actually thought. That's really darn neat. And so, for example, if we were to look at what do we want to look at over here? If we were to take a look, sorry, completely lost my train of thought back there, got a little bit too excited. So, if we were to take a look at this right here, we might notice that generally speaking, Oz, if we look at his defenses here, he's probably resisting with Vitality. So his Vitality is 258, hers is 258, his resistance is 233, hers is 241. Now, And when it comes to these attacks, you know, the attack is not going to be resisting with resistance. It's going to be resisting with vitality. If we actually, let's go ahead and take a look at their hard defense values as well. So in his case, hard defense 725, in her case 713. But if we go ahead and attempt to fire with the bow here, we'll see that, oh no, he is going to be doing less damage to her than he would to Oz here. Now look, first component to this, because this is kind of a two-parted thing here. First component is that, yes, she is an ice element, so she's going to just be doing better in that exchange, just kind of offhand there. But here's the other thing. This actually seems to be where the armor resistances apply, because I've been testing this a few times, and it seems like the actual armor affinity resistances apply in this specific situation, when it is the basic element of that unit attempting to exploit that unit's defenses, as in not like the unit's personal element, but when it's essentially the actual element of the weapon that is attempting to exploit their weaknesses, that this counters the weapon's element. So it's effectively taking 20% off of its scaling. So I'm hoping that some crazy data miners or something will be able to confirm this, because that's basically what I'm finding so far on all this. I've been testing the Coda fights a few times, specifically because the Knight Commanders in Coda 4 all kind of carry around weird mixes of equipment, and it feels very deliberate, and their defenses oftentimes feel really darn weird. Like in his case, he's resisting water, he's resisting light, and he's resisting earth, which seems, again, just very, very oddly specific in terms of his type coverages, whereas she is extremely, dedicated on resisting fire. So, either way, I just thought this was really darn neat. So if anybody happens to have some data to help back this up, I would greatly appreciate it. For everybody else, hopefully this was an interesting little look into the wonderful world of type coverage. Anyway, y'all have a good one. Take care.